Hello, today is Friday, March 4th, 2022. I'm Joe Schmidt from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. I'm sure most of you will agree that the last couple of years have been challenging in so many ways. We've all had to adopt new ways of doing things, working from home and, actually using the company UC platform to communicate with colleagues and vendors. There have been dramatic societal changes as well, but now companies are also dealing with the mass exodus of employees. Many employees are reassessing not only how and where they work, but also why they work. This is a worldwide phenomenon. So let's look into what this means as it pertains to network lifecycle management, both from the enterprise perspective and the supplier perspective. To do that, I'm joined by my fellow TC2 director, Theresa Knutson. Now, here's something interesting. Before the podcast, Theresa informed me that Anthony Klotz, an organizational psychologist and professor at Texas A&M, was the person that coined the phrase for this new era we are in. And that phrase is the Great Resignation. Hey, Theresa, first, thanks for continuing to be my TC2 colleague and not being one of those great resignators. And second, thanks again for joining me on the podcast.
Hey, Joe, it's great to be back with you on Staying Connected. Yeah, the Great Resignation phenomena is really interesting, and I don't think the impact has yet been fully realized. There's a really great article in Fortune from early January of this year where Megan Leonhardt really covers this issue in depth. And people are not only retiring early, but they're also changing jobs at record numbers. And she describes that pay is the biggest factor when people consider employment, but they're also considering the benefit packages, the flexibility in the hours, the ability to work remotely, number of vacation days. There's a whole litany of things that are important. And what it comes down to is that really talented employees have many choices. And as you noted, people are either looking to assess why they work, but they're also changing jobs to take advantage of improvements in the compensation and benefit package. In essence, really assessing whether they've accumulated enough wealth to date to exit or retire earlier than they ever planned.
Yeah, crazy times for sure. And you are right. This exodus of talent is impacting every business. So let's talk about this first from the network supplier perspective. How is this impacting them?
Yeah, I want to go back and talk a little bit. So prior to COVID, we would periodically see the network suppliers do reductions in force or RIFs. And in many cases, the people who were asked to leave, if it was a mandatory RIF, or if they opted to leave, if it was a voluntary RIF, were senior employees with many years of experience. And all the telecom network suppliers reaped a benefit from lower expenses. They lost a lot of inherent knowledge when these RIFs happened. This is prior to COVID. Now, telecom suppliers have pushed their customers to self-service portals like using Verizon's VEC portal or AT&T's Business Center to open trouble tickets and billing tickets and do their own reporting. Stating that dedicated count teams have been trimmed down, to be putting it mildly. And it's not only fewer heads, but less continuity and depth of knowledge and experience with the customer. And at the same time, we've seen an increase in the number of suppliers who ask for paid PMOs to support their customers.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I've seen that too. It's a bit concerning. You have that do-it-yourself push from the suppliers, and frankly, companies can't always staff up to do it themselves. And now we're layering on the impact of the Great Resignation on these already lean teams.
Absolutely, and I don't think the network suppliers have really felt the full impact of this yet. Seasoned account team members from the network suppliers that were nearing retirement are jumping ship earlier than it planned. This leaves more of a gap when it comes to support from your suppliers. So this means that there will be an increase of number of billing errors that happen. It will take much longer to resolve issues, and ultimately, it will take longer to contract for new services. Think RFPs, rate reviews, renewals. Everything is going to be delayed. And we're starting to see this already. If you tried to execute on a rate review provision lately, it already takes plenty of time because of the never-ending supplier restructuring and RIFs, but now it's taking longer because of the Great Resignation impact to the suppliers as well.
Hey, Theresa, what about enterprises? I have seen more than a few of my clients experience people retiring early.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think this added gap for enterprises coupled with the impact with the network suppliers is going to create a huge gap. And I don't think, as I mentioned before, it's been fully realized. Look, we all know that telecom billing is really complicated. It's so complicated that you really need an in-depth knowledge of the billing systems. You need an in-depth knowledge of your contracting methodology, and you need an in-depth knowledge of your environment. And in reality, it almost takes a working knowledge of two-variable algebra to figure out AT&T's MPLS pricing. So if your organization loses one or two key employees who know your telecom billing well, they know your contracts and they know your environment, you could be in a really tough position. And I think enterprises seek to close the resource gaps on their side by looking to leverage partners like TEM suppliers, managed services from network suppliers, and of course, consulting firms like TechCaliber. TC2, we only represent enterprises, and we often work with our clients in a variety of arrangements to fill gaps. We have several clients who utilize what we call a lifecycle arrangement, where we fill in the gaps the employees used to do. We do everything from budgeting and forecasting, month-end close support, audit and cost management reviews, and we also support and implement not only network services, but also we source, implement, and even help manage externally provided telecom expense management partner services. And I wanted to share with you one example of a resource gap that I recently experienced and where TC2 was able to help. A company had a single employee leave, and that single employee was responsible for all of their telecom contracts and all of their billing. When the person left, the CIO was concerned because of this gap. He reached out and he said, "Can you help?" During our short tenure with them, we found over 10% in savings for the client through invoice and inventory reviews, so things that were missed. But we also were able to track down missing contracts from the suppliers, which is no small feat. I mean, we're talking missing MSAs, pricing schedules that went back several years, and we provided those to the client for their files. But at the end of the day, it was really apparent that when this single person left, that there was a lot of valuable information just stored on their PC or in that person's head. And when that person left the company, there was a huge gap.
Well, you are right. This is our sweet spot at TC2. And gosh, we've been doing this for over 20 years. So I guess we've seen a thing or two. In fact, on the last podcast that Ben Fox and I did, we looked at network as a service. But on that podcast, we opined that companies seem to want more as a service offerings. And actually, I mean, that is what we provide as a service consulting to solve these types of problems that you just outlined. Okay, Theresa, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
Yeah, I guess just one thing. If you have a problem or a gap, reach out as we'd be happy to discuss how we can help solve your problem, even if it's on a temporary basis until your staffing is filled. Our support is very customizable, and we can do everything from hourly support at key times like month end to more extensive support if you have a broader resource gap. But just know that we are here to help, and we have a great team of experts standing by.
Okay, good stuff. As you just heard, expertise shortages will impact how you manage your ICT affairs. So if you'd like to talk to Theresa, me, or any of our LB3 and TC2 colleagues about what we can do to help, please give us a call or drop us an email. You can also stay up to date by subscribing to Staying Connected, checking out our websites, and by following us on LinkedIn.